Hi, this is the lecture for Class 3 in Math 104, Spring 2025, on lines and slope. A couple of reminders, assignments 1 through 4 on the review material that we covered in Class 1 is due on the 9th. Late assignments are accepted for a 10% penalty, but nothing is late yet. And assignments 5 and 6, which is material we covered this week, are also due on 2/9. We're going to talk about slope today, slope and lines. Slope measures the steepness of a line by calculating a ratio of the vertical change, which we also call the rise, over the horizontal change, also known as the run, between two fixed points on a line. So if our two fixed points are x1, y1 and x2, y2, we typically calculate slope as follows. So we often denote slope with the letter m, and it's calculated as a ratio, change in y, over the change in x. Sometimes we use delta to represent the word change in. Sometimes we say rise over run, but the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the order that you do the subtraction doesn't matter as long as you do the same order on the top and the bottom. So this is the same thing as y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. This picture summarizes how we calculate slope. Rise over run. Our rise is the change in y, y2 minus y1. Rise is the change in x, x2 minus x1. So for our first example, we're going to draw a line that passes through the points -3, -1, and -2, 4, and calculate its slope. So we're also going to remind you here how to plot a point. So the x-coordinate is left and right. The y-coordinate is up and down. So -3, -1 means left 3, down 1. And -2, 4 means left 2, up 4. Do our best to draw a straight line here. And we're going to calculate the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we'll call this x1, y1. And this point will be x2, y2. So subtracting the y's, I have 4 minus -1. And when I subtract the x's, I have -2 minus -3. So that simplifies to 5 over 1, or just 5. At this point in class, I would give you a few minutes to work a you-try example. So I would suggest go ahead and pause this video right now and try this example. And once you're done, unpause for the solution. Okay, so both graphs below are parallel lines. We want to pick 2 points on each line and calculate the slope. And then we're going to make a conjecture about the slopes of parallel lines. So on line A, 0, 3 is a nice point. And then here's another good one, goes through a nice grid line, -2, -1. So the slope of line A, just using a subscript to indicate that we're talking about line A, the slope of line A. Subtract the y's, so I have 3 minus -1. Subtract the x's, 0 minus -2. So that would simplify to 4 over 2, which is 2. Okay, now we're going to do line B. Pick some nice points on line B. Oh, I like this one, 1, 0. And maybe this one, 3, 4. So the slope of line B, we're going to subtract the y's. So I have 4 minus 0 over the difference of the x's, 3 minus 1. That is 4 over 2, which is 2. So these two lines both have a slope of 2, and it turns out that is true of all parallel lines. So our conjecture here is that parallel lines have the same slope. Here's another you try example. So I would suggest you pause the video, work it on your own, and then watch the solution after to make sure you got it correct. So here I have two perpendicular lines. I want to pick 2 points on line A, calculate the slope, 2 points on line B, and calculate the slope. And then what do we think about slopes of perpendicular lines? Cul- Okay. Um, Line A, let's pick a couple points. So this one looks good. This is at -2, 5. And maybe this one at 0, 2. So the slope of line A, we're going to subtract the y coordinates, 5 minus 2, over the difference in the x coordinates, -2 minus 0. So that comes out to -3/2. And then we'll do similar for line B. This point looks good. This is at 6, comma 3. And this point here is at 3, comma 1. And the slope of line B is going to be the difference in the y coordinates, 3 minus 1, over the difference in the x coordinates, 6 minus 3, which is 2/3. So my two slopes are -3/2 and 2/3. So what we might notice about these is that one is positive and one is negative, and are fractions flipped over. They are reciprocals of each other. And that turns out to be generally true. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, for our next example, we're going to draw the line passing through each pair of points and calculate its slope. So more of the same here. Okay, so I have -4, 6, and 2, 6. Connect those. There's my line. And to calculate the slope, I'm going to subtract the y's, 6 minus 6 over 2 minus -4, which would be 0 over 6, which is 0. And for part B, I have 4, -2, and 4, 5. Connect those to make a line. And when I calculate the slope, I have 5 minus -2 over 4 minus 4. So that is 7 over 0. And 7 divided by 0, or anything divided by 0, is undefined. So this line has an undefined slope because division by 0 is undefined. So we've seen several examples here, and now we can make some summaries about things we know about slope. So a line that has a positive slope looks like this. It rises from left to right. And a line that has a negative slope looks like this. It falls from left to right. That has a slope of 0, we just saw in our previous example, is horizontal. And a line that has a slope that's undefined was vertical. Lines that have equal slopes or the same slope are parallel. And two lines that have opposite reciprocal slopes are perpendicular. Okay, so our next example, is the point 0, -12 a solution to the equation 3x minus y equals 12? So this point 0, comma -12 is an x, comma a y. We have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So this is an x value and a y value. So to ask if this point is a solution to this equation is to ask if you make the x a 0 right here and you make the y's -12, is this equation true? So this says 3 times 0 minus -12. Does that equal 12? So this would be 0 plus 12. Yes, it equals 12. So yes, the point is a solution to the equation. If I want to find more points, more XY pairs that make that equation true, so more solutions, sometimes we do something where we make a little XY chart, right? And you can choose a value for X or Y, and then you can solve for the other one. So let's say I make X a 1. If X is 1, then that means that Y would be 3 times, oops, sorry. I'm going to solve for y. So I have 3 times 1 minus y equals 12. And the y value that would make that true would be -9. 1 -9. And then let's see, maybe I could make y 0. If I make the y 0, I can figure out what x will make the equation true. So I have 3x minus 0 equals 12. And when I solve that equation for x, I get x equals 4. So there's two more points, 1 comma -9 and 4 comma 0 that are solutions to that equation. Now we can graph this line in the xy plane by plotting the 3 points that we already found to be solutions. So those were 0, -12, 1, -9, and 4, 0. And those points, if I did a good job plotting them, should all fall right on a line. And if I wanted to be real accurate, I could find some more solutions and plot those points too. There are three forms for the equation of a line. We have slope-intercept form. This is probably the one that most people are familiar with, y equals mx plus b. M represents the slope of the line, and 0 comma b is the y-intercept of the line. Another common format is point slope, where we have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. M, again, just like over here, m is the slope. But instead of a special point, the y-intercept, x1 comma y1 is any point on the line. So x1, y1, any point. And then the general or the standard format is the least helpful. So it's probably the the one that you have the least familiarity with. No helpful information can be seen at a glance. Like A, B, and C don't tell you anything about how to graph this line. Okay, so if you wanted to graph this line, you would use intercepts or plot points. We'll do an example of each of these. So y equals 2x plus 5. This is in mx plus b format. It looks like mx plus b. Okay, so my m is 2 and my y-intercept is 0 comma 5. So I know right off the bat a few things about the line. I know 0 comma 5 is a point on it. And I know the slope is 2, which means I could get another point by going up 2 over 1, right? Because slope means rise over run. And you can write any number over 1. So a rise of 2 and a run of 1. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1 and put a new point right there. Okay, and I can keep doing that, up 2 over 1. And then I can go down to left 1 and keep getting points so that I can see what this line looks like, and then just connect them with a nice straight line. Okay, this is in y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 format. So again, I know my slope, and this time it's -2, but instead of being given the y-intercept, I'm given a random point on the line. Okay, and my point is x1 comma y1. So you ignore the negative signs, right? It's x minus, and whatever comes after that minus is your x coordinate. And over here, whatever comes after that minus is your y coordinate. So my point is going to be 3 comma 6. So I can plot the point 3 comma 6, and then I can use the slope to get some more points. It's -2. Again, this is rise over run. So that would mean down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And I can continue this pattern to get a whole straight line of points that I can connect to draw my line. Finally, here's an example that is in general form or standard form, ax plus by plus c equals 0. There is no handy trick for finding graphing the line here. There's no nice, neat thing that can just pull out like the slope, like how you can the slope and a point in the other two formats. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an XY chart and just get some points to put on this graph. And the easiest X and Y values to plug in are going to be 0. If I plug in 0 for X and 0 for Y, and it only takes 2 points to determine a line. So this is called the intercept method, because when X or Y is 0, you're getting X and Y intercepts. Okay, so if I made X 0, that means this X would go away, and I'll write it out. -0 plus 3y plus 9 equals 0. When we solve this for y, we get -3. Okay, and if I make the y 0, I have -x plus 3 times 0 plus 9 equals 0. And when you solve this for x, you get 9. So these are the intercepts that we found. 0, -3 is the y-intercept, and 9, 0 is the x-intercept. Just 2 points determine a line, so I can just connect these with a straight line, and I've got it. Okay, two more two more lines that I want to find the equation of. So this first one's horizontal. So I'm going to start by just plotting a bunch of points on here. So here's a point on the line. Its coordinates are -8, comma 8. And here's another point. This is -4, comma 8. And this point right here, that's 0, comma 8. And here's another one over here, 8, comma 8. And maybe I'll put one more here, 4, comma 8. So every point on that line has something in common. They all have a y coordinate of 8. 8, 8, 8, 8. No matter what point I plot on that line, it has a y coordinate of 8. And that is the key to writing the equation. We say the y coordinate is 8. Y equals 8. Now on my vertical line, I'm going to plot a bunch of points. And this point is -6, 8. And this point is -6, 6. And this point is -6, 0. And this one is -6, -4. And this point is -6, -10. So on this vertical line, every point on it has something in common, and it's the x coordinate. The x coordinate of every point on this line is -6. And we use that to write the equation. We say the x coordinate is -6. X equals -6 is the equation of that vertical line. So to summarize, a horizontal line, right, would look like this. And its equation is y equals something, okay? Y equals a number. And then its y-intercept is that same number. 0 comma b is the same number. And we saw earlier that the slope of a horizontal line is 0. Now a vertical line is going to look like this. And every point on it is going to have the same x coordinate. So its equation is x equals something. And that something is going to be its x-intercept, a comma 0. And we saw earlier that a vertical line has a slope that is undefined. We have a bunch of examples here. This is a good time to pause the video, try these 5 problems, and when you're ready to see the solutions, unpause the video. Graph the line y equals negative 4x plus 7. So in this case, I have the y-intercept is 7, okay, and my slope is negative 4. So that's going to mean down 4, right 1, okay, because the slope is rise over run. So negative 4 over positive 1. So down 4, right 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1, and I have another point right there at 1 comma 3. And I can keep doing that to get more points if I want to be more accurate with my line. 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. But it really only takes 2 points to determine a line. So once you have 2 points, you can just connect them with a straight line and you're done. You can see sometimes it's helpful to have more points just because it's hard to draw a straight line without the guideline points. Graph the line y plus 2 equals negative x plus 5. So here I'm given a point. This is in point slope format. So the format is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So the general equation has minuses, but I see pluses. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that so that it has minuses. So I have y minus negative 2 equals negative x minus negative 5. So that way I have the minus signs that are supposed to be there in the general format, and whatever comes after the minus sign is my y1 and my x1. So my point that I start with is negative 2, negative 5, and my slope comes from that negative sign, which is really a negative 1. So I'm going to plot the point negative 2, negative 5, and then I can get another point by going down 1, right 1. Just I can get a few points by using the slope. I only need 1, I only need 2 points to determine a line, but it's just a little easier to draw a straight line if you have a few more. In this problem, it's given in general form, which is not particularly helpful. So I'm going to use the intercept method by making an XY chart. I'm going to make x0 and y0 and get the matching coordinate for each of those. So if I make x0, I have 2 times 0 minus 4y plus 12 equals 0. And the solution to that would be y equals 3. And if I make y0, I have 2x minus 4y plus 12 equals 0. And oops, that's not supposed to be 4y, it's supposed to be 4 times 0. Okay, and the solution to that is x equals negative 6. So now I have 2 points, 0, 3, and negative 6, 0. The y-intercept and the x-intercept, just connect them with the straight line, and we are done. If you wanted to get more points, you could. You could just put some more x or y values into this chart. You could make x1, find the y, but you only need 2 points to determine a line. Graph the line y equals negative 3. So what defines this line is that every point on it has a y coordinate of negative 3. So it's going to be something negative 3. So left or right, doesn't matter how much, something, and then the y coordinate's negative 3. Okay, so 7, negative 3, 3, negative 3, 0, negative 3, negative 5, negative 3. So all these points that have a y coordinate of negative 3, they form a horizontal line whose equation is y equals negative 3. The line x equals 4, every point on it has an x coordinate of 4. The x coordinate is 4. So it's going to be 4 comma something. So we could do 4 comma 0, 4 comma negative 3, 4 comma -8, 4 comma 5. And you can see the pattern emerging, right? Every point that has an x coordinate of 4 lies on this vertical line. In 2007, 31% of Americans reported trust in the government, and in 2015, that percentage had dropped to 19%. If we let X represent the number of years since 2000 and let Y represent the percentage of Americans who report trust in the government, translate the given information to 2 points in the format X comma Y. Okay, so X is going to be years since 2000. So we have 7, okay? And in 2007, um, the percentage is 31. Okay, and then my other point is 2015, which is 15 years after 2000, and the percentage is 19. So now I want to find an equation for the line that passes through those 2 points that we just found, and we want to put it in slope-intercept form. So that's y equals mx plus b. So I'm just going to jot that down. Okay, so I need the slope m. So I'm going to start by finding the slope between these 2 points. So I subtract the y's. I'll do 19 minus 31 over, subtract the x's, 15 minus 7, which is -12 over 8. And we can put that in lowest terms. They can both be divided by 4. -12 divided by 4 is -3, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So -3/2 or -1.5. Okay, so I don't know the b. Okay, so I now know the slope m, but I don't know the b. To figure it out, I'm going to start by writing down what I know so far, putting into the equation what I know so far. I have y equals, instead of an m, I have a -1.5 x plus b. Okay, so to figure out the b, which is the last piece of information I need, I can use either of my 2 points, and I can plug in the x coordinate for x and the y coordinate for y, and then the only unknown will be b. Um, yeah, the only unknown will be b, and I can solve for it. So pick either point. I think I'll use the 15 comma 19. So I'm going to put 19 for y equals -1.5 times 15 plus b. -1.5 times 15 is -22.5. And I'm just going to add that to both sides to get b, which is 41.5. So my final equation of my line is going to look like this, right? I've got half of the letters plugged in that I need. I just need to find m and b. I've already got m right here. Now I know b, so I'm going to take this version of my equation of the line, y equals -1.5 x, and instead of plus b, I now know what b is, so I'm going to put it in, 41.5. So what does the slope of that equation tell us? Okay, so -1.5 is my slope. Write it as over 1 because slope is always rise over run, or change in y over change in x. And in this case, y represented a percentage of people who had faith in the government, right? Percent of people, and x represented years. Okay. So -1.5 tells me that the percentage of people with faith in the government is declining by 1.5% every year. The percentage of people who, what was it? They trust the government, who trust the government is decreasing by 1.5% per year, for each 1 year that goes by. Okay, so the negative sign is why I know that it's decreasing. And the 1 is that it's how I know it's each year, every 1 year. What does the y-intercept of this equation mean? Well, when you're on the y-axis, right? Y-intercept means the point on the y-axis like that. So my line looks something like this. Right? And this point is 0, comma 41.5. And I know that X represents years since 2000 and Y represents percentage of people who trust the government. So the y-intercept says that in the year 2000, 41.5% of people trusted the government. As another example, now I'm giving you 2 points, -1, 3 and 1, 2, and we want to write the equation of this line in point slope form. So point slope form, that is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And maybe we'll call this x1, y1, and this one x2, y2. Doesn't matter which one you label them. Your x1, y1 can be either point. But either way, the first thing we have to calculate is slope. So the slope of this line is going to be the difference in the y's. So 2 minus 3 over 1 minus -1, which is 1 over 2 or 1/2. And then I can use either point to plug into y1 and x1. I now know m. Okay, so I have y minus something equals my slope, which is 1/2 times x minus something. Okay, and what goes here and here is the y coordinate and the x coordinate of either of these points. I happened to label this one x1, y1, so we'll do this one first. Okay, so my y1 is 3 and my x1 is a -1. Okay, this should be fine, but as a matter of convention, subtracting a negative, we don't usually write that. We write plus. Minus a negative gets changed to a plus. Okay. Or we could have used the other point. We could have done y minus 2 equals 1/2 times x minus 1. That's what you get if you use this point as your x1 and your y1. Either of these is correct. Write the write the equation in slope-intercept form and use function notation. All right, so I'm going to just jot down what we already found. Y minus 3 equals 1/2 times x plus 1. Slope-intercept form, that's y equals mx plus b. So I just want to change the format of this line to mx plus b format. That means I need to get the y by itself. Solve for the y, no parentheses. So I'm going to distribute my 1/2. So I have y minus 3 equals 1/2 x plus 1/2, and then add 3 to both sides. So I have y equals 1/2 x plus 3 1/2, which is 7/2. You can also just write 3.5. But there's the equation in slope-intercept form. Oh, and function notation. Um, that's where when you use a fancy form of y. So instead of writing y, we use the notation f of x. F of x equals 1/2 x plus 7/2. So f of x is just a fancy way of saying y, called function notation. We're going to talk much more deeply about function notation in a future lecture, but I think it shows up a little bit in your homework right now. So that's all you need to know for now, is that f of x is just a fancy way of writing y. To put this equation in general form, I need one side to be 0. And typically, we don't want any fractions. So we can clear the fractions and put everything on all the terms on one side. Okay, so I think I might multiply both sides of this equation by 2 to get rid of all my fractions. Okay, so now I have 2y equals x plus 7. And then I just need all of my terms on the left-hand side because so I want the right-hand side to be 0. So I'm going to have minus x and minus 7 from both sides. So I have negative x plus 2y minus 7 equals 0. Next example, we want to find an equation for the line that is perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 5 and passes through the point negative 3, 2. So to find the equation of any line, you either need 2 points or you need the slope and a point. So if you know a line perpendicular to the one we're interested in, then you know its slope. Okay, the slope of the line we're interested in, because it's perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 5, its slope will be the opposite reciprocal of 3, which would be negative 1/3. Okay, so now I know the slope and I know a point, and they just said find an equation, so I'm going to use the easiest one when you're given the slope and a point, which is point slope form. And I'm just going to plop in my points. So my y coordinate is 2, my slope is negative 1/3, and my x coordinate is negative 3. So I have minus a negative becomes a plus 3. Okay. And if you like mx plus b format better, you can distribute the negative 1/3 and solve for the y. And you'll get y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1. Okay, this is the last example, and it's a you try example. So pause the video, try it yourself, and when you're ready to see the solution, unpause. Okay, so I want to find an equation for the line that is parallel to y equals negative 2x minus 4 and passes through the point 2, 5. So if it's parallel to y equals negative 2x minus 4, then I know its slope is negative 2 because the slope of this line is negative 2 and parallel lines have the same slope. Okay, so I know the slope and I know a point, which means the easiest equation format to use is going to be point slope format. And now I just plop in all the things I know. Put in the y coordinate of my point for y1, put in my slope for m, and put in the x coordinate of my point for x1. And if you were trained mathematically on y equals mx plus b and you don't like this point slope format, you can always solve for y and get slope intercept form. So that would turn out to be y equals, so when I distribute this negative 2, I'd get negative 2x plus 4, and then I add 5 to both sides. So I have negative 2x plus 4 plus 5 is plus 9.